I was getting close and they came after me.
Now, when you're in a unit like this, is it kind of like what we see in the movies?
People that was brought in as a suspect, I believe was brought in for no other reason than the detective had beef with him.
Give us a really good bust story.
My door knocked one day I was off and it was the DEA, the FBI, and an analyst, and came in my house and interviewed me for 8 hours.
Imagine spending your career putting drug dealers behind bars only to wake up one day and realize the FBI thinks you might be one of them. That's what happened to today's guest, Michael Dilks, a Florida narcotics cop who went from busting traffickers to being investigated by the DEA and FBI, all based on suspicion. Mike, welcome to Locked In. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
I appreciate you having me, man. Really good stuff you're doing, and it's cool to be here.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's crazy how social media works. You just reached out on Instagram, and we were able to connect.
Yeah,
and
it's
now
not that fast, and it's funny, like inmate, former cop, like it's just in the world, like how we end up connecting later on. I think it's good stuff, and it's always good to get messages, stories, and like a success story like yours out is a good one. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, those are my favorite episodes. I mean, the law enforcement ones, because they're so different. And
mine will be very different.
Yeah, and the audience loves hearing the law enforcement ones, especially when you're being interviewed by someone that was in prison and is a criminal. So it works out good.
I bet it does, yeah.
Plug in your podcast. Tell everyone what you got going on.
I currently co-host the Anti-Hero podcast. That's on YouTube. And then our Instagram is at the _antihero _ podcast. That is the big one. That's myself and Tyler. We do primarily military first responder type podcasts for cops. We help them, with getting their stories out, getting out information. And then on my own, I run the Copville podcast, which no intention to bite off yours, but I called it Locked Up with Copville. That podcast started, and we'll talk about it, was due to being unfairly treated at the sheriff's office where I worked. And I started a meme page, Copville OG, which quickly blew up to over 100,000 followers the first time, back to 70 after Instagram nuked me. But I used dark humor of the cop world to become funny or make it funny. And then from there went, I can probably use this to help some people and make a little difference. So at Copville OG, at the Anti-Hero podcast, and then Counterculture is our social media company, which assists other podcasts and people getting into this realm with some of them not making the mistakes we did, give them a little guidance, kind of like a social media advising agency. So that's the three big companies: Counterculture Inc., the Anti-Hero podcast, and Copville OG.
I like the logo.
Yeah, I bit off of a little bit off of Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
That's what I was just
close
thinking.
to Miami.
Yeah.
My website, if you go to my website, copvilleog.com, you'll see it's a drop down. But on the game case, if you remember, it had like the helicopter. I took cops and scenes from famous cops episodes and people that I actually know. One of them was up here, the trooper that screamed and yelled at the kid about the marijuana, Matt Spina on the side of the road. It was like, it better be in the original container. It made like national news on YouTube. I put him on the cover. I put another guy named Jordan Innes on the cover. I put Jerry Worms, who was the first cop on episode 1, 1989, Broward County, on the show Cops. I've been able to connect with all these guys. So I kind of bit off the Grand Theft Auto, but I used all like famous cops from history, and it's a pretty cool site, pretty cool logo, I think, and it's been very successful, so I'm excited.
We were just in California, and Matt was like, I want to go see Santa Monica Pier, where where Grand Theft Auto is based on.
So I've never been to Cali, but I'm working my way there with these connections kind of start leading you all over. Like I never thought I'd be sitting in Connecticut on a podcast, but here I am.
It's funny, what I just realized too, every law enforcement officer that comes on the show always brings a backpack with them.
I usually don't carry. So
every single one.
So mine is for the opposite reasons. Most of them because they're carrying a gun and I'm like a girl. I was like, oh, do I wear this shirt? Do I wear that shirt? And I always have my Coke Zero with me. And literally, I only do this when I'm like out of town. Around town, I don't carry a backpack, but I can see where you would make that common. There's usually a gun in there. I didn't bring my gun because I flew. But
or they'll bring protein bars and stuff. Yeah, like they're prepared for anything.
I'm cheating this time. I got a pork roll. I call it pork roll for a pork roll sandwich before I came, and then I don't think I have any protein bars in there this time. I got cashews. Cashews is my go-to.
What's a pork roll?
Pork roll, like Taylor ham, they call it in Jersey. Pork roll. It's like, dude, I can't believe you're that close. There's a big debate. Like half of Jersey calls it pork. It's like bad.
Never
meat.
Heard of this.
It's like right above scrapple. It's like processed meat, and it's really good and salty. And we grew up on it in Jersey, and I moved to Florida, and they have it at like Publix, which is our ShopRite or whatever supermarket you have. But when you come up to Jersey, you get like a pork roll and a bagel. It's just meat, cheese, and bagel. But they argue in Jersey it's either pork roll or Taylor ham. So I call it pork roll, but that's what happened.
So you grew up in Jersey?
I grew up, I was born in Suffolk County, New York, and I moved to South Jersey, right outside of Atlantic City when I was an infant, and I lived there till I was 17. Then I moved to Florida when I was 17 in 1993.
Why did your family decide to move?
My mom was in the boom. My mom is a very big success story as well. She started out as like a janitor type person in a hospital, and back then, you could get jobs without going to college, like in all these scam of college now. And she actually became an ultrasound technician the old way, which was just going to school and like learning from your friend, like a training. So she became pretty big in Jersey as far as like one of the best echocardiogram and ultrasound people. Worked for all these doctors, and an opportunity came when the boom and where I ended up going, which was Vero Beach, Florida. Old people, Florida, there was a boom of like influx of all you people up here, we call you, moving to Florida and taking over our, little New York down there. So there was a massive opportunity to make almost the same money with about the half of cost of living. So every year my mom would take us to Disney, and I would see Disney every year. She took us to, and I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to live here with the lizards and the palm trees and all that? So 1993, just before I was 17, my mom decided to take this big job opportunity in Florida, and we moved, and it was a good move. I mean, I enjoyed growing up in Jersey and that, but moved to a more conservative state and where I did a little bit better politically, I think, down there. So, and that's why we moved.
What about your dad? Was he in the picture?
My dad was, yes, my dad passed away September 27, 2010, which is part of my story about where my life kind of turned a little bit, but he was there. He was a truck driver, and it was funny. He was a truck driver. He wasn't in the mob, but he worked for Nicky Scarfo in Philly for one of the roll-off companies that one of these gangsters had. And I always remembered the phone would ring at landline back then, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and these guys would call, "Hey, Gordon, can you come in? We need you to take a roll-off up to North Jersey for." I'm pretty sure there's dead bodies in these dumpsters, and my dad would do this. And my mom used to tell me they'd pay him cash. And she said she had a grandfather clock in the house, and she would hide the cash in there. And she's like, the phone would ring like twice a week for your dad because he didn't ask questions. He wasn't nosy. And they would just call your dad to go drive these trucks up to Jersey, drive back. And my dad never asked a question, and they never get. So it was weird. So I guess my dad was like quasi in the mob as a German English guy, but didn't know anything, wasn't connected. But he drove trucks, and then he moved down to Florida. He got really sick and had some heart issues and passed away at 54.
How many siblings did you have?
I have one sister who is, I'm 49. She's 45. She's like 4 years younger than me.
Were you guys close growing up?
Yeah, we're still close. We have a really close family. My whole family kind of migrated from Jersey down to Florida, and we all moved, reestablished the family down there in Vero Beach.
How would people have described you as a kid?
ADD, class clown. I was really good at sports. I played a lot of sports, but I was always the kid that was really good, but didn't get a good enough grades to play. So in the small town, I played hockey, baseball. That was pretty much my two really good sports. I was good, but I always robbed myself of being able to maybe make it to that next level by I think I was undiagnosed back then. You can see me now. I was just undiagnosed ADD. They didn't have a thing for it back then. We were just bad kids. So they hit us and said, go act right. And I would say I'm the original ADHD kids from the early 80s that nobody knew what it was. So wild. I didn't get in trouble, but I was definitely, you knew I was around when I was around because I didn't shut up.
What were some lessons your parents taught you?
And I used them in law enforcement, was my mom was very big on just introducing yourself when you walk into a room, having good manners, being cordial to people. And that was, I wasn't very religious. My grandma was the religious one that made me go to church and Sunday school, believe in God. And I always used God as an accountability, but I was a mama's boy, and mom being Italian and Greek, I always kind of went with what would my mom think of what I'm doing right now? And I transitioned that into law enforcement when I trained new guys. What would your mom think about what you're doing right now? So the lesson she taught me was mostly that: be a good person, have manners, walk into a room, introduce yourself to people, be friendly, be cordial, be nice. Don't be taken advantage of, but just try to be a good human when you meet people, and you don't know what their life story is. And that was probably the most thing. As a mama's boy, I would say that was what she instilled in me, was manners. And I see it now. There's no such thing anymore in this world. People just plop down, get on their phone. They don't acknowledge you, and it kind of drives me crazy.
Yeah, I noticed like in apartment buildings, no one says hello.
No, you don't even know your neighbor. Like me, I live in a subdivision with mostly old people, but because of the new world, I'm like, I don't know who that guy is. Like where I grew up in Jersey, I could walk in somebody's house 4, 5, 6, 7 houses down, just walk right in the front door. Oh, Michael, you're here. You want a drink? Yeah, give me a drink. And leave. I don't know who the guy is across the street now. Like I've never seen him, and he don't talk to me. I don't talk to him. So it's a different world. It's a weird world.
When we travel down south, though, they're a lot nicer, like in North Carolina or
Yes.
Tennessee or any of those areas.
You guys up here are just
No,
me, I
people are
guess.
just kind of rude. They honestly are.
It's a different world. Yeah,
it's the worst when you get the people that are angry at the Starbucks line or Dunkin' line or anything like that.
Crazy. I heard, like I said, I've only been here since Friday. Today's Sunday, and yeah, I've heard, my fucking way, and this, and I'm like, I'm up north again. I can tell.
Oh, you normally live in Florida?
I live in Florida.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I'm a full-time resident down. Yeah, I come up here for live shows and travel, and still have relatives up here. So I know right when I'm in Philly, New York, when you start to hear the people like look at you like you're an idiot for just existing.
Fellas, if your performance lately has been giving buffering wheel more than HD playback, it might be time to upgrade. Blue Chew's tablets are like giving your lower half a LinkedIn premium account. Suddenly, he's confident, assertive, and ready to network aggressively. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. Better with a capital B, like your partner saying, "You did what last night?" But the good kind. Let me tell you, I took one of Blue Chew's tablets and my junk got promoted from backup dancer to lead singer with a Vegas residency. My downstairs didn't just show up, it clocked in early wearing a headset like it's running a TEDx talk titled, "How to Impress Her Group Chat in Under 5 Minutes." Even my Fitbit thought I was running a marathon. I was just showing effort. One time after using it, I went to the bathroom mirror and even my reflection gave me a high five, a spiritual awakening, but for the hips. This isn't just about showing up, it's about leaving behind a highlight reel. Be the reason her best friend says, "Wait, he did that?" That's third leg C level stuff right there. Level up at bluechew.com, and we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of Blue Chew free. Just use promo code LOCKEDIN at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head to bluechew.com for details and safety info. And big thanks to Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast. Did you ever have a moment in your childhood or teenage years where you could have gotten in trouble, but you didn't?
Oh, yeah. We used to ride four-wheelers and run from the cops all the time, and I say Jersey, everybody thinks like, hey, forget about it, Jersey Shore. I grew up in the sticks. I grew up in South Jersey, cornfields, tomato plant. Like we were right close to Atlantic City, but where I was. So ironically, the guy I did it with became a cop as well. And I never, if I played cops and robbers, I played the robber. I never in a million years ever wanted to be a cop, thought about being a cop, never crossed my mind. But there were times when one of my earliest memories of a cop was, you guys have inspection up here. And for people that don't have it, they inspect your car, make sure it's up to their standard to extort money from you as the government. But my dad ran from the cops. So I'm in the car. I remember we drove by. He didn't have an inspection sticker. He takes off in an old Nova and just flees from the police. I'm like kindergarten, first grade. He beat it. He got to the house, pulled backyard, and the cop car went by. And I'm like, I don't know what just happened, but it seems kind of wild. Then I started running from the cops on four-wheelers. I didn't do anything bad, but I ran from the cops, drove four-wheelers around, and if I would have ever been stopped. And then the closest I came when I moved to Florida, I was walking home one night from a restaurant I worked at. I had 2 beers in my pocket, one in my hand. I'm probably 17 or 18. Cop drives by. I see him, and I'm like, oh, shit. And I take all 3 beers, and I throw them into bushes. Guy turns around, pulls up. Jack White, black guy. Cop walks over to me. He's like, what'd you just do? I said, I threw 3 bears in the bushes. He's like, go get them. So I went and got them, and I was literally like 100 yards from my front door. He made me pour them out and walked home. They were strict, and I didn't know this till later. I worked for that same agency, how strict they were about possession of alcohol by a minor, but he let me go. Had I gotten arrested that day at an 18-year-old, I would have never been a cop. And I ended up working with him at the same department years later. Still see him all the time. He's old and retired, but had he have arrested me, I may have been able to navigate that, but probably not. It would have been a very minor offense, but I was close enough to the age of, an adult that I probably would never have become a cop had that have happened or if I got arrested.
Did you think about that moment later on?
Oh yeah, I tell that story all the time. And that's where I say, like, you don't know, and people may not like me, but I think I've done society pretty well throughout my career. My life would have been completely different. May have I ended up a criminal, may have ended up who knows where. Who knows what would have happened. I think I joined the United States Army shortly after that. I gave 3 years to them, 23 years as a cop. So I gave society 26 years. But that could have changed my entire. I'm so bad that if I sit at a light and catch a red light and don't make it, I think, man, what would have happened if I got through that light? So I'm very bad about it. But yes, that could have potentially changed kids, wife. Life could have gone completely. Who knows? So yeah, that was a big moment for me. And that's where I kind of use that empathy when I deal with young kids to go, do I really want to ruin this kid's life over a beer or some little bit of marijuana or something like that's going to change this kid's life? To me, it's just a stat, or, to the cop, it's just a stat. But to this kid, it could be the difference in being successful or being unsuccessful.
Do you think some cops lose sight of that?
I think a lot of them do. And I am here, you can hear me say this, I think it's the administration and the higher ups within the agency that cause cops to lose that. They take discretion away from cops. There's hidden quotas. There's pressure to do things like make minor arrests. And I know in Vero Beach, where I grew up, it was very prevalent and still is, that maybe they don't lose sight of it, but there's a tough line where you work for the people. My version of what a cop is, you work for the people. You don't work for the government. You don't work for an agency. You should support the people. So you should always do what's best for the people of your community. What happens is, though, administration puts so much heat on you and you have to have a paycheck and you get broke because you want to buy the big truck when you get hired. You want to live that lifestyle, that I think they lose track of the Constitution and who they work for, and they're influenced by the policies and the agency. And yes, they lose track that could be you, man, or that could be your son who just needed a little break on 2 grams of marijuana or driving recklessly a little bit. Teach them the lesson. And I will tell you, in my history, usually counseling somebody and letting them go is way more effective than handing them a $200 speeding ticket and letting them go without any counseling, like troopers. There's your ticket. And it's like, this motherfucking nasty. Or, hey man, do you know what I'd have to call your mom right now because you're speeding, you wrap yourself around a telephone pole and you die. And now I got to go to your house and tell your mom and sister and dad that you're dead. Is that what you want to do? And like, oh man, I never thought of that. So just trying to use lessons and, like, I think explaining and being, now, obviously if they're an asshole or they're not receptive to that, but I think trying to reach people as a human first is always the best approach.
I've never once gotten a warning by a state trooper, ever.
You want to hear funny? I got one on the way here.
Really? A warning?
And I thought I was going to get a ticket. So I got pulled over just as I merged on I-95 in Florida. FHP is bad. They're bad about tickets. And not 10 seconds into my trip to all the way up here, I'm glancing down on my phone. I look down, I'm going 92. And I look over and I see him in the median. And I'm like, as soon as I saw the car back up to come, I'm like, well, I know the drill. I've been doing this my whole life. I just shot to the right, stopped the car, license and everything out. And I said, he gets up to the car, and I don't know if they, like you said, I don't know if they piss in their fucking coffee or something to go through trooper school. He walks up and he's like, license, registration, insurance. I'm like, hey, dude. I'm like, I apologize. I'm like, I just retired from this county that we're in, 23 years. I'm like, I'm going to Philly for a show. And off he goes. Doesn't even let me finish. And I'm like, well, this is going to be a bad start to the vacation trip. And he walks back, and I knew based on the time in the car when I saw the door come back, he couldn't have written me a ticket. Even with the printers, I'm like, I didn't get a ticket. And then I see him get out with just my license. I'm like, cool, I got a warning. And I'm a conspiracy guy now, so I'd started recording. I'm like, they don't have body cams. FHP doesn't have body cams. So I hit record, and he walks back up. And he's obviously writing me a warning. And I tried to explain to him what I do. I'm like, hey, man, I run this pretty big page, Copville. We advocate for slow it down. And he just walks away mid-sentence. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I think, like, if I pulled a cop, hey, where are you from? Oh, what'd you do? 23 years. Blah, blah, blah. Even if you're not a cop, if you have a cool story, like, oh, I'm hurrying to my grandma. I'm hurrying here. Hey, what do you know? Let's talk about it. This dude was like a machine.
He only let you off, though, because you're a cop.
Maybe. I don't know.
100%.
No, I have a family. My wife got a ticket a couple years ago going to Disney as a cop. My wife is a cop as well.
She's a cop?
My wife is a cop.
Still?
Still.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And we'll get into how much it affects her my show. But we were going to Disney in April of 2023, and she got a dude was just as nasty. Walk right up to the car. I had a gun in the car. He doesn't know me from Adam. And I'm like, hey, dude, I got a gun right here. He's like, grabs the light, this same thing, and just walks away. I'm like, if somebody told me they had a gun in the car, I would at least address it as a cop. Walk back up. Here's your ticket.
Got a ticket?
Whole thing, dude.
And she said she was a cop or no?
Yes, both of us said I'm a cop. And what had happened was a trooper had just got killed maybe 5 nights earlier in our county. And I was like, hey, dude, you know, I'm sorry to hear about your buddy that was killed. We were on that. I was actually involved in the manhunt for the bad guy. That dude didn't give 2 shits and just stroked her ticket and walked away. And I was like,
wasn't there a viral video of like a Florida sheriff or something that just got fired because she said, I'm the sheriff of this county or something when she was getting a speeding ticket?
I don't know if it wasn't the sheriff, but there have been several viral videos in Florida where the sheriff, and I go after them, where they pull rank, and I think it's improper. Tell me who you are. We're all looking for a little help. I know if you could we're all looking for a little help when we get pulled over. We don't all
no,
want that.
I've never once pulled it. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I would be like, hey man, I run a podcast, dude. Like, but I don't know that there's a sheriff, but probably when I think sheriff, I think the elected sheriff. But yes, there are videos there was a chief. You're talking about
the chief. Yes. The female
on the
chief.
golf
cart.
Like,
yep.
There is. And she pulled her rank and she ended up in really hot water.
I think it was because of the way she said it. It was the tone.
Yeah.
It could have been
got to
said
present
differently.
it. But here up there, the problem is up here, all you do is hold your badge out the window in the Northeast, and the cop just turns his lights off and keeps going.
Yeah, here the PBA cards work, everything.
Down in Florida, that's not the case. They want to. They're pissing in their. I'm telling you, they're pissing in their coffee, man. They have this hard on for like fucking with other cops, and I say that where cops should not break the law. I agree with you. We shouldn't do the thing, but we all speed. We all do dumb stuff. It's like everybody wants a warning. It's almost like being a cop in Florida. It's like worse than just being a regular person because it's like they set out. I've been pulled over. I had a guy pull me in uniform, and he was screaming at me. In West Palm, I was going to a class. I was going fast. I was going like 96 I was cooking. But he ran up to the car with the radar gun in his hand, not his gun. His gun. I'm a bad guy. And he's screaming at me, and I'm in full uniform going to a class. I had to drive an hour each way to this class. And I'm like, bro, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, I'm late. I'm speeding. Like, if you want to write me a ticket, write it. I get all my stuff out. I was so mad. I dropped my wallet. I got the metal wallet. All my IDs go everywhere. And then he just get out of here and walked away. And I'm like, what did we just do? He was like in an unmarked, and everybody knows him. He's like an Indian male in an unmarked white Mustang. And when I got to the school and I got pulled over, that's all I said. And they go, I bet it was that asshole in the white Mustang. And I'm like, it sure was. And like, they're crazy about it. Like, I get speeding is important. It's important to enforce the law. But when you throw officer safety out the window and like just get so wrapped up in speeding tickets, that sets you up for a viral video where you're getting killed. So like, there has to be a little bit of like, you have to keep your tactics in that and you're cool. And this guy was nuts.
Before you graduated high school, what were you thinking career-wise? I know you said you'd join the military, but was that always the plan?
No. So how I ended up in that situation was I was 18 years old and I'm working odd jobs. I'm at like the hospital working in like the kitchen. I dropped out and got my GED. Odd jobs. My mom's there and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I started thinking military because I'm like, I always had that in my head, like, everybody should join the military and just give something to the country. And I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised very patriotic. I just thought like basic working family, I should do that. Well, I'm playing softball in like a men's league. My mom got me in with these doctors. I'm smoking weed before the games, like, you know, dumb 18-year-old kid. Somebody comes up to me one day and says, hey man, how do you like playing softball with the chief of police? And I'm like, what? And they're like, Jim on your team is the chief of the Vero Beach Police Department. I'm like, bro, I'm blazing in the car before these softball games. Like, what are you talking about? So I'm like, well, I got to stop doing that. So I stopped doing that. And I think I was working at like a car dealership and detailing cars. I'm going nowhere. And I went up to him and I'm like, hey man, like, I hear the chief, like, you know, he's like, oh, you'd make a great cop. You seem like a really good kid. And I think about it, I could dunk a basketball, and like 2 days before my interview to be a cop, I got my finger caught in the chain basketball net. So I walk into this interview, GED, no education, and I got a sling and my finger's all jacked up. And I went through the interview to be hired, and thank God I didn't get hired. They were like, nah, you're not really what we're looking for. But if you go in the military for a few years and come back, we'll hire you. So I was like, cool. I literally left, and without telling my mom, I contacted the Army recruiter. I drove to Miami in March of '96 and signed a contract without even telling her, and I left like 3 weeks later to join the military, and I figured if I go do this, there'll be a job waiting for me when I get back. So I joined the United States Army as 11 Bravo Airborne Infantry, and I mean, I did all that cool stuff, jumped to airplanes, but they held their word. When I got out, they hired me.
Do you think it was integral to your career to join the military and have that experience?
I again think everybody should, and yes. So what that grew me up. Dumb, dope smoking kid, smoking weed. I wasn't some maniac. I hate marijuana. Matter of fact, I'll tell you the story I got. I had no idea those THC drinks exist. I don't know if they have them up here.
Yep, they do, yeah.
Bro, I went into a gas station about 4 months ago, and I bought one. I thought it was an energy drink, and it was 20 milligrams of Delta 8.
Oh, man.
I didn't make it home before I was convinced the feds were back after me. And I'm like looking around. I'm like, that SUV's been following me for a long time. I went home and I walked around my house for 4.5 hours, pacing, looking out the window, paranoid because I had no idea what that drink was and what was happening to me.
Don't they keep them in a separate aisle though?
Nope. In Florida, dude, it's wide open. We sell alcohol right out in the open. It's a wild west down there. So that's my weed story. But I was kind of like a dope smoking kid, and I thought, let me go grow up. So I joined the United States Army, and yes, I grew up fast. I obviously basic training, Fort Benning. Infantry is the top tier MOS in the military. You're a bullet catcher. And it matured me, and it grew me up, and it taught me responsibility. It taught me accountability. It taught me you have to make your bed every day. And that is the greatest, that's the most proud thing I've ever done, even though I don't always agree with the government. I work for the people, so serving the people. I'm willing to die for the people, and that 3 years in the military was the segue, I think, to the rest of my life, and it was very important to me.
Yo, let me show you something real quick. This isn't just jewelry. This is what I call subtle flex that speaks louder than words. GLD hooked me up with this diamond tennis bracelet, and I'm not kidding. The second I put it on, I felt like I just signed $1 million deal. The shine hits in every angle, the weight is legit, and you can feel that it's built to last. Here's why I rock with GLD. Specifically, they're not pushing fake looking stuff or weak metal that flakes in a week. Their pieces are waterproof, sweatproof, and backed with a lifetime guarantee. Every stone is hand set, not slapped on. You could tell just by holding it, it has presence. And let's be honest, when your jewelry feels right, your energy changes. You move different, you talk different, you carry yourself like you know you're that guy. GLD has everything: chains, earrings, pendants, watches, even fully iced out pieces if you want to go full superstar mode. Plus, over 2 million people have already jumped on board with 50,000 plus 5-star reviews. We're talking guys like Justin Bieber, Tyreek Hill, Malik Neighbors, ASAP Rocky rocking this brand. They're not picking randoms. They also have official collabs with the NFL, NBA, MLB, WNBA, NCAA, DC Comics, so you could get a piece that reps your squad or your favorite hero. Work hard and change the game. For a limited time only, new customers are getting an insane deal. Use code LOCKEDIN to get 50% off plus a free chain at gld.com. That's 50% off and a free chain with code LOCKEDIN at gld.com. After your purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Guys, if you want a chain like this, get your butt over to gld.com and use code LOCKEDIN. I hope to see you guys repping it. Why do you think you were so set on becoming a cop after the military?
I wasn't. I just wanted a job. I still at that point had never dreamed of, I didn't know what cops did. I had no idea. I didn't watch cop shows. I just said, I'm getting out of the Army. I have no career. And they promised me a job. And it was like, I'm just going to do what's next. So, and I think throughout my career that helped me. Not being the guy, because the old knock on cops is you were the guy bullied in high school and you became a cop. I wasn't. I was just a regular dude, but I just wanted a job, So I went in, I got hired as a dispatcher, waiting to go to the police academy. And I started there in 99, worked for a while, went through the police academy, and I graduated and worked my first patrol shift in April, the day Dale Earnhardt died. February 15th, 2001 was my very first patrol shift. I watched Dale Earnhardt crash at the Daytona 500, and I worked 4 to 12, and that was my first shift. So I wasn't dead set on it. It was just like kind of like riding the wave. I'm a young kid, and I had a daughter by that point. I had one kid in the military. I'm like, it's a job. It's decent money. It's got good. Well, the the sales pitch is the great retirement, the brotherhood that doesn't exist, and then the benefits and all that. They suck you in with those. You know, we're going to take care of you the rest of your life. You're going to be one of us.
Was
So,
it good pay back then?
No, but for the time, yeah, I guess it was. Florida, I started at like 32,000 a year, 31,000 a year.
Pretty good for Florida.
Yeah, it was good. I took a pay cut when I went to Scherz. I was years later, but yeah, it was benefits, health insurance, retirement. You know, this agency didn't have take-home cars, but it was, you know, it was good money, good status job, and then, you know, I want to help people. You know, you get to go out and help people. So it was cool. I mean, like I said, I never once in my life woke up like, I want to be a cop. Even going through that whole becoming a cop, I just kind of went with the flow of what life was kind of dealing me.
And were you married to your current wife now?
No, that was my first wife. I have 4 children with my first wife, and we were together from 1995, and we divorced in 2009. I had all 4 children with her. They're my only 4 children. Good relationship with her still. Everything's cordial, and but that was my first wife.
Did you have to take a polygraph test?
Oh yeah.
So you passed it for?
I admitted to smoking weed.
Really?
Yeah, you can still, dude. Now, guys, I work with guys who've gotten DUIs on duty, gone out for a few years, and worked their way back through.
I've actually interviewed a guy that got a DUI as a cop, and he switched to a different department.
No, there's 2 of them that work still work where we work. One's a captain, and we have one guy got arrested for domestic violence. He still works there. Back then, smoking weed was kind of even now. So I guess Jersey cops can smoke weed now because of the. But in Florida, they waived it now. But when I was throughout my life, it was a 2-year thing. You had to have 2 years clean of smoking marijuana, and then you can apply. But when I started, there wasn't even like a window. So I admitted on my application I smoked marijuana. But I had those 3 years of military to clean me, kind of a clean, like 3 years United States Army. You're drug tested like fucking twice a month in the military.
So is it a misdemeanor you could get, and then you still stay on the force? Because
yeah, you can't be a felon. Yeah,
okay.
And you can't have it, and you can't have any misdemeanors that involve like credibility issues, like lying, any type of fabrication. But you can smoke weed. A lot of guys have speeding ticket issues. Some guys have DUIs, and they waive that as long as, you know, now they'll take fucking anybody. So it's scary.
Oh, now they're kind of desperate to get law enforcement.
Florida's a disaster.
You see literally billboards everywhere for law and correctional officers.
They're waiving down there in Florida. They're waiving psychs and physicals. You don't have to take a psychiatric test or a physical. And so they're giving bonuses.
How did it feel then to arrest people for weed if you used weed yourself?
So, I guess the easiest way I could say it was, I wasn't a huge weed arrest person, and I didn't make many, but it's still the law. So I broke the law. I smoked weed. I joined the Army. I stopped doing it, and then I took an oath to not do that ever again. And the statute was pretty clear. So I guess the way I look at it in my head, and I like how you asked that because you're right, but it's just like speeding to me. We're all going to speed tomorrow. You're going to speed, but you don't want to get stopped for speeding, but you're going to do it. And we all cop speed. So I looked at it like, I have not done that in X amount of years. I would never do it again. And now I have a job that says you have to tell people they can't do this. And it's not like people don't know they're not allowed. My dad smoked weed. My dad smoked weed my whole life until he died. So it was kind of like, well, what do you want me to go arrest my dad? So it's a weird part of the world, but I took an oath that was my job, and there was this stupid book that all these rules, and they paid me to enforce them.
But you know what's interesting about what you just said is that kind of ties into second chances for a guy that gets out of prison.
Yeah.
You know, that's what he did in the past, and he's a new person now, if they're actually honoring that. And
I'm an advocate for that, and I love that. The problem is we see guys are arrested 19, 20, 27 times, and they're not making a difference. But I mean, as we get further, I actually got a text message we could talk about later from somebody that arrested years ago that just contacted me recently due to social media, and we'll talk about the interesting things he had to say about life then and life now. So there are a lot of success stories, and as we get into the narcotics work I did and all that, part of my goal was not that there's guys you want to put in jail, like shitbags, guys that beat their wives and guys that do really bad things to children. Like, you want them to rot in hell. But I was very discretionary when it came to drugs and marijuana. I wasn't a huge marijuana arrest. I didn't like it. I mean, it was a segue to get in cars and smell marijuana, but if all they had was a little bit of marijuana, I had no problem with it. But the first agency I worked for was very, very strict. You have to write a ticket at a traffic crash. I'm like, So this dude just rolled a stop sign, gets in a crash. His insurance is going up. He's having the worst day of his life. Oh, by the way, here's a $176 ticket for careless driving. And I refused to do it, and I got in trouble all the time. When I went to the sheriff's office, they took that it was all discretionary, and I never wrote another ticket at a traffic accident in the next 20 years.
I think the biggest problem right now with like marijuana too is you could be in Connecticut and you could smoke weed, and then if you go to Florida, you can't smoke weed.
Well, we have dispensaries now.
Oh, is it recreational?
We have it's right there
because it failed the last election.
It failed, right? And then it is now you can have a card, and now we have hemp, and now as a cop, when I walk up to your car, I have to dispel all your opportunities to produce a reason why your car would smell like weed before we can even get to it. So if you have a marijuana card, we're done. You can smell like weed. If it's hemp, which we can't tell the difference between hemp and weed anyway, we're done. So there was just a big ruling in Florida where
I just read that.
Yeah, we have to go through those steps before we can get to. And I'll be honest with you, that was kind of overused. Like, hey man, I smell weed in this car. I'm not going to lie to you that the cops don't do that, but that kind of puts a little rein on that. And, I looked at weed like it was a lot of people that smoked weed did a lot of other things, but there was a lot of people that smoked weed that only smoked weed. So it was like kind of guilty by association. We use weed to get in cars, and guys are trafficking cocaine and fentanyl. You really want fentanyl dealers off the street. But, the 50-year-old dad of 3 that goes, takes his kids to school every morning, does nothing wrong, works at the factory down the road, that smokes some weed in his free time, is he really the guy we need to take to jail? Like, I didn't agree with that. Never will, never did. And you can go, I'll be an open book to my entire career of arrest. You will not see some cheese dick marijuana arrest on that. It's either pounds and pounds and pounds that they're obviously were selling it, or they really earned it. Like, they're selling crack, but the only thing I could catch them with that day was weed, and I know they're selling crack, so they're taking the ride. But regular old Johnny Citizen ride, he's not going to jail for marijuana. Not in my world.
I remember we used to carry the bottle of Axe and spray it in the car and on ourselves. And now, even now, if the place smells like weed because someone smoked in here, I'm always like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble, but it's like, it's legal here, So
yes, you're good. Yeah, it's legal. Like I said, it's pretty much legal everywhere now. So
where do you go next when you start? Like, do you go to a certain division?
I started in Vero, and ironically, my very first call as a cop is an armed robbery, and I'm like, this is it, dude. Dude gets robbed for a cell phone. I literally leave the station from that first call, and I'm in a foot pursuit with 3 black males that robbed a dude for a cell phone, and we catch 2 of the 3, and I'm just like, all right, this is it. This is neat. That wasn't what the job ended up being, but so I get into Vero Beach Police Department. I quickly realized that it is a one step above security. It is a small, rich town that they don't want crime. They don't want to acknowledge there's crime. They don't want us chasing bad guys. We're going to like medical calls, like somebody falls and scrapes their knee. We're sending the police because we're Vero Beach. We're here for everybody. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is stupid. And it is so micromanaged that like the chief is involved in like traffic parking lot crashes. He's interjecting his opinion. There's no rank. It's like a dictatorship in that building. And I'm like, bro, I can't do this. And I'm listening, I'm scanning. I'm able to hear the big bad sheriff's office over there, which is, they're policing 250,000 people. They're working 20, 25 guys a day, and they're pursuing cars, and their dogs are biting people, and they got robberies and shootings. And I'm like, I'm listening to this, and I'm like, I got to get into this. And I took a liking to narcotics, not weed. This was a crack epidemic when I started in 2001, 2, 3, 4. Crack is just rampant. And you go to houses, and, a lawn guy comes out and his entire lawn business is stolen out of his trailer. His house has been broken into, and his daughter is terrified to go back into her house because some piece of shit broke in and took everything out of the house. I'm like, the reason they're doing this is to smoke crack. So I started going, I'm going to go after crack users and crack dealers. But the city didn't want that. They're like, no, we don't do that here. So I worked at the city from 01 to 04. In December of 04, I went to the sheriff's office and immediately went to the hood area, and just white dudes pulling in, trading their cars for drugs. It's just chaos at this point. It's before the cell phone era, so they can't call ahead. They can't meet at the gas. They're just driving through the hood, hoping to make, like you see on Cops in the old days, where the guys are just driving around. And I'm immediately like, this is my fix. This is what I want to do. This is it. So I do that for about a year and a half, and then I ended up getting transferred into like Undercover, task force narcotics work
with the sheriff's
with the
department.
sheriff's office. And this is where kind of things, now I know all the corruption and nonsense that was going on in that world with the cops and the bad guys, but I'm a naive 5-6 year cop at that point. So I get sworn into like DEA task force. I got this DA status, and we're starting to work like high-end wiretap investigations. And I quickly see that, how's the best way to segue this? Crack dealers, high-end crack dealers, are on flight logs with rich, white, affluent people who own big businesses in town. And when we get to that level of the investigation, we don't talk about that anymore. Those guys are like untouchable. We're just going to focus on these black dudes that are selling crack. And I had a partner, Paul Mewborn. He did 20 years United States Army as a first sergeant. He passed away last year, and then 20 years as a cop. And he was a victim of that, where he uncovered that it wasn't, he uncovered the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz behind the screen wasn't these black dudes selling drugs. The guys going to South America, bringing it back to our community. And I started to see that those guys were protected. Like, we couldn't get the investigation to that next level because those guys were contractors and bigwigs in town, and you couldn't talk about that. And that's where I think my career took a little turn, where I was getting close and they came after me.
Who do you think was protecting them? The city officials or the federal officials?
No, the locals.
The locals.
There were some scumbag local guys that, like when they say the brotherhood, and I talk about this, I was influenced to do not illegal things, but like, we get issued buy money. So I'm a dope cop. You get $500 if you got to pay an informant, if you got to go do a crack deal organized. This money is like the gospel, though. You have to have every pound accounted for. You can't be out giving your girlfriend money. You can't be out spending it. But little things where like the supervisor of the unit would go, hey, the girls that work at the sheriff's office, they both need windbreakers. Mike, take your buy money and just go buy them 2 windbreakers. And I'm like, it doesn't seem like we're supposed to use it for that, but okay, I'm a young cop. I don't know. It must be okay. I go do it. And then I get to my receipt phase where I have to write my receipt. They're like, just put it down as an informant payment. And I'm like, what? Like, we can't do that. But you just like any abusive relationship, like where a wife is abused or something, you're in a position where you can't really question it. So you're like, okay, I guess this is okay. I'll just do it. And then he collects it and he turns it in, and you get your new $500. That's gone. And when you see something it seems very minor, but that hindsight now, that was 2006, 7, 8, 9, like what, 15, 18, 20 years ago. Now I realize that it's kind of like when in the movies where Denzel Washington gets in the training day, he tells a new guy, go do this, it's okay. Go do this, it's okay. Next thing he's in a fucking drug house with a bunch of drug dealers. I never got that far, but I could see where those little things, and that leads me to question, if this guy is in charge of the drug unit and he's willing to turn a blind eye, even to something as silly as jackets for females that needed them, what else is he willing to do? And there was always rumors and people saying like, this guy's a crook, you're working for a bunch of crooks, they're in bed with criminals. And you don't want to believe that. But now I do believe it.
Now, when you're in a unit like this, is it kind of like what we see in the movies where, you guys are plainclothed officers, you kind of are your own team,
We have
very
separate
private.
Separate buildings.
Yeah.
Did
you watch Den of Thieves? It's kind of like those crews.
Yeah, it is. We were in an off, we had rental car contract with Enterprise. I have a different car every day of the week. We just had every guy had a card that walked in Enterprise and said, I need a different car. I'm burned on surveillance. We're in a separate office. We're wearing jeans, t-shirt, badge underneath, gun. We are untouchable, unaccountable, just mercenaries of whatever we want to do. And that's where your character has to be extremely strong. And I've been accused of everything from being like the FBI and DEA investigated me, all these things. And I will tell you that if I did all those things, a lot of people will say, you think I would come on a podcast, or I would go start my own podcast and put my face out for everybody to see and go, man, there's a guy that was crooked. I have no problem doing it because my conscience is clean. But I can't prove anything those guys did, but I know that based on what a lot of people said they did, saying it alone, I would never say somebody's guilty. But combined with the behavior I saw and the willy-nilly on little things like even if it's $50 of buy money, that type of behavior then leads me to believe you're willing to take $1,000 payoff. You're willing to take a $5,000 payoff to just give information or turn information over, which is some of the great things I was accused of that I didn't do. But I believe those people, maybe I was getting close to them in an investigation, and I became the target of an investigation that I didn't find out about for years later. But it definitely is like the movies. It's there's a lot of wild shit that goes on.
So do you think those units, if they have good character, can be effective
They
for
are
combating
effective.
crime?
Absolutely, you need them. You have to have them, but there has to be. You have to be one of the most. You have to have super integrity. And you know what? People can say whatever they fucking want. When I got investigated, the FBI and DEA went behind my back and interviewed all my informants, and my best informant was a female. And of course, what was the first question they asked her? Did you ever fuck him? And she laughed and she pointed at the wall and she goes, "All my kids are black." She's like, "He's a great looking dude, but I like black guys." And that chick and I put 9 people together in prison for the rest of their life for drug trafficking and bad people that cause a lot of people to overdose and die. But I never crossed that line. But the first thing everybody accuses you of when you come in undercover is you're banging all your informants, you're breaking the law. I now know that those guys were. And I don't mean that I saw it like I was involved, like I'm part of. They were a generation before me. So they were doing this shit in the late 80s, early 90s, late 2000s. Some of these guys were around long enough. By the time I got in 06, 07, there was enough social media accountability that you couldn't just be reckless. But when I heard people tell me that about these guys, they had like weird, maybe illegitimate children that were running around and all these, I go, now it makes, especially now it makes sense that, I walk into a grocery store and I have a guy go, so-and-so is crooked, right? I'm like, yeah, you're right. And he goes, that dude planted drugs on me. And I'm like, 10 years before my time, I go, I believe you. Like, I wouldn't have believed you 10 years ago. I believe they did. So it is like the movies, but you have to be. Now, the problem is just like the Rodney King beatings and all those stuff that affected us as cops forever. I don't believe that's happening still. Some places, yes. I think it was way more rampant back then, but I don't think most of your drug units are crooked nowadays. I don't think cops are as crooked as everybody makes them out to be. And maybe their soul is crooked and their mind is crooked, but there's so many checks and balances in social media and cameras and people around. I just don't think they're doing like Michael Dowd. Like, they're not doing Michael Dowd type stuff anymore. There probably is a few, but there were probably 50 Michael Dowds or 100 Michael Dowds when he was doing it. I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah, there's too much.
Too
many people looking. Too many whistleblowers.
There is. You would get smoked, and it's too easy to track evidence, and all the technology has come along. But I do believe it was going on, and I believe it was going on in my agency.
So, aside from the jacket incident, when was the first time you really felt uneasy about something that was going on in your unit?
We worked a wiretap, and one of the people that was brought in as a suspect, I believe, was brought in for no other reason than the detective had beef with him. Like, his brother was selling massive amounts of cocaine, and we were on a wiretap, and the brother of the main target he wasn't innocent, but let's say you and I are trafficking cocaine massively, and your brother goes once a month or once every 3 months, his buddy calls and goes, "I know your brother's moving that shit, man. Let me help me out." And he would like connect them. That's it. Is he guilty? Yes. Did we need to be on his phone? No. And I saw that happen, and I was like, why the fuck are we bringing this guy in on the case? Like, he's not. I'm listening to these phone calls. I hear the calls. We're really listening. I'm like, he doesn't talk about drugs. And I think that was a personal vendetta against that guy to rope him in. And of course, he got the very least. I don't even know why he got convicted, but he broke the law. He broke the law. He definitely facilitated narcotics deals. But I was like, man, we got guys moving 20, 30 kilos and making trips all over. And we got a connection in Haiti, and worried about some dude that like facilitates a drug deal when we're working this massive federal case. I just didn't like it. But again, I'm so young and new and naive that it's like, who are you going to go tell? Your career, your life. It's like, and I guess you call me hypocritical, but it's like a domestic violence victim that isn't ready to say, my husband beats me. Like, I can't get the words out of my mouth yet, and I'm too scared to say anything. So that's kind of what I was seeing, was like uneasy. Is he guilty? Yes. But did he really need to be brought into the case? I would say no.
Couldn't you have just switched units? Couldn't you have gone to a different team if you felt?
Yes, but again, yes, absolutely. Your easy answer is yes, but you're in that lifestyle. You're making a difference. I'm putting people in prison that belong, and it's like he ended up getting transferred out not too long later. The guy that I'm talking about that was in charge of that part, but he ended up getting put in a really wild IA where he got caught with drugs and narcotics in his car. He kept his job, ironically, but yes, you could. The easy answer is yes, and I would now, if I could go back to 2010, Mike, and give anybody advice that's listening or any cops, and I do this on my own platform, the days of turning a blind eye to bad administration or bad cops is over. You have to speak up. And if you don't want to do it, contact me. And I'll do the legwork. I'll do the public records request, and we'll go after that bad guy and get rid of him. But yeah, your easier answer is, and I should have.
Before we move on to finding out about your investigation, give us a really good bust story that you took place in.
I guess so. My big claim to fame case was, I did the first RICO case in history of Indian River County, racketeering case. You see RICO and the mob and the gangsters, and it happens. But I put together. We had guys that were killing people. They were selling poison. They were selling crack. And I was able to write my first wiretap and infiltrated a massive drug network. I started in March of 2009. It was my first case on my own, where me and another guy wrote the wiretaps and got the ability to listen to 3 different guys' phones. And then we were picking off the small timers that were buying, but we were moving ourselves up where a little case in Vero Beach, Florida led to the feds getting involved, and half of it went to Haiti and the other half was in Mexico, to the point they were taking semi-trucks and boats off coming into the country with massive amounts of narcotics. That started with a $20 crack deal in Vero Beach, Florida. So it lasted a year, and in April 7th, I'll never forget the date, April 7th, 2010, we did this massive multi-agency takedown where we arrested like 120 people over like 3 days, TSA agents, government employees, former cops, but just took off this massive. So that was probably my big case where, you hear the war on drugs. You're never going to kill the war on drugs, but these guys were killing people. And I looked at it like, I'm making a difference to the mom that lost her daughter to narcotics, and I'm at least putting that guy away. Although not for that case, I'm putting him away for something. So one of the defendants got 3 life sentences. One got 25 years. Another one got life. And then we spun it to the feds, and I have no idea from that point how far that case went into the federal government and what they were able to do with it from there. But at the end of the day, my justification was bad guys selling poison to the community and killing people. That's why I wanted to put them in jail.
In your experience, these individuals that sell the drugs that have poison in it, that kill people, do they just not have a heart? Do they not have feelings, and they really prioritize money over people?
Yeah. Money it is, and they gaslight you so bad that I'm the bad guy. It was scary. Like, I never forget the takedown day of that case when we took the main guy down, Christopher Rudolph Brown. I'm scared of 3 people. 2 of them I never have to worry about again. Christopher Brown, Randy Brown, no relation, 2 life sentences, 3 life sentences, and Demarius Odom, he gets out in 2032. He's in the feds. Those 3 people, I believe, will try to kill me. 2 of them, fortunately, can't ever get out, and 1 can. But they have no soul. They have no soul. I'm the problem. I'm the bad guy. I put them in jail. And where I realized all that was I'd come out of the drug unit, went back to patrol, and I stopped a guy in the hood on a bike. And he looked at my name. He said, "Dilks?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Michael Dilks?" I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Ooh, Randy Brown is going to kill you." And I said, "Randy Brown's never getting out of prison." He goes, "Michael Dilks, you better hope he doesn't." He sits in that block every day. He knows your kids' names. He knows your wife's name. He knows your mama's name. And if that man ever gets out of prison, he talks about it from sun up to sundown, how he's going to kill you. I believe he would. Unfortunately, he's in prison the rest of his life for 2 life sentences, and DJ Odom gets out. And same scenario where I had no idea came back from the feds for a state case, and I brought a warrant into the back of the jail. And when I looked over in the holding cell, DJ Odom's face is against the glass, and he's staring at me. I'm like, I went over to the booking guy, and I was like, I don't care if this building catches on fire. That door does not open until I'm out of this jail. And he looked at me. I said, I'm telling you, you're not have a gun in the jail. I said, I will go back out and get my gun. That door does not open. And I remember looking at him but they don't have a soul. It's my fault they sold drugs. It's my fault I arrested them. It's my fault that I did what I did. And the Chris Brown was when I arrested him and I walked in, he was laying on the ground in handcuffs. He looked over his shoulder and he goes, you live 5 houses down on the right. And we were 5 houses away from my mom's house. This just happened to be where we arrested him. He knew where I lived. And I'm like, motherfuck, man. Like, that's a scary thing to think those guys are doing counter surveillance on us. They know where we live. And that was my big case, those guys. But in that, I learned a lot of like, they're doing as much research on us as we are on them. Scary.
How did you find out you were under investigation?
So how did I find out I was under investigation? I'm very transparent. I went through, my dad died in 2010. I started hanging out with a couple guys that I probably shouldn't have. One guy had been arrested for possession of cocaine, and one guy had been, I guess, arrested for some type of drug thing. I was a raging alcoholic at this point. 2010, my dad dies. My mom, there's a syndrome where your mom, I forget what it's called, where it's like your mom, I became my dad to my mom. My mom never has, to this day, has remarried. I foreclosed. My wife leaves me. We're divorced, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm a wreck. And I always wish somebody would have either arrested me for DUI, because I'll tell you, I drove drunk quite often. They should have just pulled me over and put me in jail. And I made it, but that would have saved my life short term. I was hanging out with some guys I shouldn't have been hanging out with. And the rumors started around town that I was involved, that one guy was growing marijuana, I guess, allegedly. All I did was go to bars with these dudes. It was like an outlet. We went to bars, we drank, we went to some strip clubs. Everybody always told me to play the card that I was working them as informants, but I have too much character to make that lie up. They definitely gave me a ton of information. It led to a lot of arrests, but I was a lost soul, and I was hanging out with people I shouldn't have. And at some point, one of the guys told somebody that he was hanging out with me, and his buddy was an informant for the feds, and went to the feds and says, you got a crooked cop. He's hanging out with this guy, and you need to look into him. I guess my version of this is what I told you before. The same guy that asked me to buy the jackets, I had a meeting one day and in Narcotics, and I knew of 2 guys. One of them, Jason Voterbeck. I think he's reached out to you. He went to federal prison. Mm-hmm. Me and Jason are now friends after all this shook out. Jason Voterbeck and Zach Rose were the first 2 pioneers of pill mills in Indian River County. Jason used to traffic cocaine big time, and he'll tell you he actually paid people to watch me. He was most scared of me. He thought I was going to get him and get his operation. So that's a side note to this. I was in a meeting with a bunch of people that shouldn't have been in the meeting. They weren't sworn in like we were. They weren't drug narcotic detectives. They were soft people that in the agency that shouldn't have been in. And I had information that Zach Rose was laundering his pill mill money through a tanning salon that his mom owned. And the informant working was the female I was telling you about, my A1. She calls me. She said, dude, we're shipping $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 a week, sometimes twice a week, from here in this little tanning salon to all these places where Zach has these pill mills and all this shit. And I'm like, holy fuck. So I'm like, I'm on the cusp of this. Like, this is good. I told that guy. The one guy, I went to his office. I said, dude, I'm on to something. We go into a meeting. He's like, Mike, tell us about that case you're in. And I'm like, no. He's like, no. And there's all civilians in there. There's like a analyst and this other detective. I'm like, we don't talk about this stuff in front of people. No. He made me. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, this guy is doing this. What I just told you, he's traveling. There's a bit of my phone rings not 20 minutes after that meeting, and it's the girl. And the female informant, we had never had a problem. We worked together for 10 years. You motherfucker. And I'm like, what? She's like, you fucking, after 10 years, broke the fucking rule. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She says, a fucking detective just showed up over here at this tanning salon. And I know exactly who it was. Silver car, brown pants, blue shirt, because he was wearing that in the meeting I was in. And he drove over there and told the fucking mom everything I just talked about in the meeting, tipped her son off. And I went, holy fuck. Nobody did anything about it. Nobody said anything about it. What did they do? They came after me. And that's why I believe I was targeted, was this dude knows too much. This dude is onto something. He's onto the corruption. And next thing you know, they go after me for hanging out with these dudes and launch this massive federal investigation on me. And I didn't even know it. The reason I started finding out about it, where I would go to bars and stuff and dudes are like, you're going to get indicted. You know, they had like didn't run a good investigation because people in the community were being interviewed and talked about it. But I didn't do anything wrong. Did I do stuff wrong that probably policy-wise? Yeah. Should I have been hanging out with these dudes? Should I have been hanging out with them and going to strip club? No, I shouldn't have. But the level of what they were trying to say, that I was involved in marijuana grows, I was planning to rob drug dealers, like this shit was just wild what they were saying about me. And we'll talk about it in detail, but the end result was not even an internal affairs investigation. I was not indicted. I wasn't even questioned by the agency. It just went away.
Who was the investigators?
I assume, because I've never been able to pull it. Yusef Hofstra, I don't know if you know his name. He was investigated by the feds as well. And he was a cop that killed somebody off duty, got his job back. He's like, dude, you need to fucking go get the paperwork and look at. I've just never bothered looking into it. I don't know if it exists, but it was allegedly the DEA and FBI. And why I know that is eventually my door knocked one day. I was off, and it was the DEA, the FBI, and an analyst, and came in my house and interviewed me for 8 hours.
About everything.
And I did not request a lawyer. I was like, no, I don't need a lawyer. Like, you guys come on in.
Oh, so that confirmed that the DEA and the FBI were investigating
Yes,
you.
yeah. That was like 2014. That was 3 years after they investigated me. Because the pill mill case I was involved in with this massive pill mill, I guess the problem was one of the main players, and I confirmed that before, just to make sure I got this right. Zach Rose was in with Voterbeck. They were the two main guys. There's jail recording phone calls that Jason Voterbeck provided to me where Zach Rose tells him, I will do anything to not go to prison. And part of anything is I will lie and say Dilks was giving me information and I will take him down to get us out of this trouble. And I was dating a girl that Zach knew. And I guess I didn't know this at the time, and it's been all confirmed in court. The girl I was dating was going through my fucking phone and being paid by Zach. And Zach's plan was to get enough information and then flip it that I was giving him, because the feds didn't care if my girlfriend was giving him information. That wasn't juicy enough. He was basically trying to cut a deal with the feds that if I can get Mike dirty, can I get off of this? And he was trying, he ended up going for a long time, and they all got commuted at some point by Biden. And this isn't my speculation. This is coming from one of the dudes involved in the case. Jason Voterbeck was involved in all this. He sent me jail calls. He sent me documents. That was Zach's plan. Zach's plan was to frame me as a dirty cop, and that would have been juicy enough for the feds to cut him some type of deal. So he took the stand in like Jacksonville against my knowledge and testified that I was like a crooked cop. He was getting information from me. He was paying me. I would love to see the money because I was running out of gas twice a week. I was so broke at that point in my life. I was down in the dumps, but that was how, and I was getting spillback in the community because this was all being talked about, and I had no idea. So I'm hearing like little bits and pieces, you're going to get indicted. I'm like, I didn't fucking do anything to get indicted. Like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. So eventually they came and interviewed me, and they had the binders, and before that though, which I didn't know and I knew later, was they did a controlled phone call. They did a controlled meet, and they did a controlled meet where they showed me, and I remember these days, they showed me pictures. And one of the pictures was one of the guys I was hanging out with that I shouldn't have been. And I think they thought I was going to call him right after that meeting and go, oh my God, so they showed me a picture of the guy. I go, yeah, it's Bo. They're like, who is he? I said, he grows marijuana. I said, allegedly, he's easy. I said, I gave him the address. I go, he lives right over there. I'm like, if you go talk to him, he'll probably fold. He's a pussy. That's the guy I was supposedly working with. And I'm like, if I was working with this guy, don't you? And I didn't. I never, the worst thing I did on my fucking mother, who I just told you how much I care about my mother, the worst thing I did was hang out with those dudes I shouldn't have hang out with, and I drove drunk a lot because I was an alcoholic.
So do you think they were investigating your whole team or just you?
No, originally it was the whole team. I confirmed that originally they thought the whole team's crooked. And then when I guess they started to look into the team, they narrowed it down to just Mike is crooked.
Did anyone on your team get arrested?
No, there was never even a charge filed on anybody. Nothing ever came of it.
No internal affairs investigation?
Not even an internal affairs investigation.
Just your suspicions that some of your team was crooked?
That part they never looked into. They looked into me. And then they investigated me and they presented the case to the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office investigator said, there's no probable cause, you didn't do anything. And then it went away, and it didn't resurface until 2024.
So let's talk about the day they came to your house then.
Yep, absolutely.
Tell us about that.
So the door knocks, and it's DA boss that I worked for when I was in the task force, a guy that now I think it was an FBI agent from what I remember, because I didn't even care, and it was an analyst. And they came in, and I said, come on in. I'm like, you guys want to sit at the table? My mom's right here. I'm a mama's boy. I'm like, mom can sit and listen to all this. Like, come on in. No, let's go in your room. So at the time, because I was having such a great life, I lived in my mom's garage. But it was built into like you got out here. It was very nice. Had a big room, painted New York Giants. I was a Giants fan, had a big TV. And I said, come on in. And I'll never forget the formal investigation. I was in one of those gaming chairs that you like sit on the floor and can rock back and forth in. And I'm looking up at analyst, DEA, FBI, and binders and binders and binders. And they just, off we went for about 7 hours. And I was like, they questioned the trips to Miami. I'm like, nope. The guy said I shot my gun out the window or some wild shit. And what I looked at was like the Zach Rose thing. If you tell the feds I'm getting information third party by a girlfriend, they're like, well, the cop's not. If you tell the feds I'm getting information from a cop, woo, it's a better story. So it was a lot of fabrication in these accusations. Like, I'm like, I shot my gun out the window. Oh, they were doing cocaine in front of me. I'm like, no, they weren't doing, like, what? I was like, I went to strip clubs. I definitely took the drives. It was only like twice too. And I'm like, yeah, but to side note it, they only interviewed, there was 3 of us in the car, and you're not a cop, right? You've never been a cop. If there's 3 people in a car and somebody accuses somebody of something, how many people of those would you interview?
All 3?
They never interviewed one guy. Or they did, and they didn't like what the guy had to say because he would have told them the truth, which I didn't do anything wrong. Never and he ended up passing away. He had an overdose and he died. But never was there one document of interviewing the 3rd guy in the car, which I always found odd. Like if I have 3 suspects in a car, any good defense attorney would go, you only interviewed one other guy in the car with my client. Where's the interview with the 3rd guy? This is the feds. So I always wondered, he either told them the truth and they didn't like the truth, or they just didn't bother because they didn't want. But anyway, so they come in and it's just an 8-hour day. They're going through all this stuff. The 2 of the main things they were hung up on were the ride to Miami. Did I shoot my gun out the window? I'm like, absolutely not. Did I concoct, or was I going to rob Jason Voterbeck? And I'm like, you guys are fucking insane. Like insane. Like, no, I'm not. I'm barely like, no. And then the girl I was dating was connected to a doctor, and I had fucked my back up. And I went to the doctor, and she gave me a prescription for, and if you know anything about, I don't know how knowledgeable you are of pills, but the pill mill cases were the 30 milligram heavy hitter oxys with the fucking Xanax, and then whatever that 3rd drug, they were killing people. I got a prescription for 10 350 Tylenol Lortab, basic fucking pain meds. You can't even inject them. You can't sell them. They're worth $1. I was fucked up. I believe wholeheartedly that I didn't know this at the time. It was before E-Trace took over and there was like the monitoring. When I needed the 2nd prescription, I believe my girlfriend probably, because she was the nurse for the doctor, just called it in. So they were hung up that the doctor during the 2nd prescription was at a concert in Atlanta. And I was like, I am telling you that the doctor authorized me to get a prescription. It was re-upped. I don't know how that happened. I went to a pharmacy and I bought it. I paid it. I picked it up. They were convinced that I was hooked on pills and I was selling it. I'm like, these are $3 pills. Like if I sold the whole prescription, like, and I got 2 of them. I got 1, 2, and never got another one. But the way they tried to twist this with everything else was like I was trafficking drugs and selling. I'm like, are we on the right planet? Like, do you guys understand? Like, I was too knowledgeable in narcotics and how in my history to go, this doesn't even make sense. That's like me trying to traffic Coca-Cola. Like, we can buy it at the store. There's no value to it. So that was the 2 main things that were hung up during the whole interview. And I was like, bro, I'm like, I didn't lawyer up. Like, I'm an open book. You have my bank accounts, obviously. You had my phone records. You have my rumor. I still just don't know rumors where they were tapped my phone. So then you would think over however many months you would have something to charge me with. They left that day. And the last thing I said to them were, do I need to notify the agency that you guys were here? No, we'll take care of it. Okay. I went back to work.
Mm-hmm.
I never heard about this again until 2024.
Did word get around your department that you're under investigation?
All over town. I talk about miserable, man. You know, my dad dies. I'm an alcoholic. I'm going through it. And now everybody's walking around town saying I'm a crooked cop. And again, DUI. I drove drunk a lot during that time. I actually stopped drinking after all that and went years and got in shape and started lifting. But yes, it was all over town that I was getting indicted and I was going to federal prison and I was a crooked cop. And that's tough, man. That's tough. That's tough to deal with. That's tough to be labeled. Even 13, 14 years later, it doesn't come up as much, but it's like anything else. It's like, you tainted my name. I always faulted them for putting me in charge of such large cases in a small town where I had to go to school with these guys. I knew these guys. They knew where I lived. So yeah, I was labeled as the crooked cop that never was even disciplined one single second for anything that ever happened.
That must have been tough to do your job.
It was. I went back to patrol. They bounced me on narcotics. I went back to patrol in 2012, 2013. I still had to go through. So at that time, we were investigating like 9 pill mills in multiple states. And I was the wiretap. I wrote half the wires. So I had a 4-day suppression hearing and a 4-day deposition with like 19 attorneys and 19 defendants. I always assumed that was in like 2013 or 4. I always waited for we got you. What about all this federal investigation? I sat through 4 days, and when I didn't get asked about it, I was like, what fucking planet am I on? What planet? But at the end of the day, a reporter walked up to me in the hallway and said, any comment that about you were possibly under federal investigation? And I was like, no, I don't have any comment. And that was the only time I ever addressed. And one of the attorneys walked up to me before the 4-day deposition, said, there's rumors about you. He's like, I'm not going to ask you anything about that. So rest assured, rest easy. We're not going in that. We're going into the case and we're diving into it. So I was like, okay. I never thought another word about it.
So what happens in 2024?
Well, let's back up. Because if you want to jump to that, and we'll jump back to.
No, you can tell us. Yeah, go in order.
Okay, so let's go in order. I come out, nothing happens, and then you never heard my TikTok story, right? So 2020, TikTok is very popular. COVID's hitting, and I am remarried to a female who has an affair with her boss. And I go through a midlife crisis. I'm 42, 43 years old. I get on TikTok. And at the time, the current sheriff is running for sheriff. I'm his best friend. I'm his best man at his wedding. I end up in the Daily Mail as racist because in the background of one of my TikToks is a rap song that has the N-word in it. And, everybody's racist, right? So I end up on international news. Not the cool news like Channel 5 local. I end up in the tabloid world of like BET, MTV, Daily Mail. I'm getting death threats from Turkey and Romania and Japan that I'm a racist. So that happens, and I go through this whole thing where, again, I'm back in the news. I'm suspended. I'm a disgraced cop. All that happened in reality was I got the basic discipline, which is a letter of counseling. But I was removed from SWAT for 6 months, and I lost my ability to be a field training officer. Reason I say that is I was best friends with the guy who ended up winning the election. So he wins the election. I go through this TikTok nonsense. It all goes away. Still a joke, though. I get hammered over it. It's the most cringe thing. Like, I don't even care about the federal investigation at all. It's the TikTok that makes me cringe the most, that I was so distraught from going through the trauma of my wife's affair and like being emasculated that I reached out to fat trailer park girls on TikTok and was getting my feed of like from like fat women on Snapchat sending me naked pictures and shit because I was going through it, dude. I don't know if you've ever been cheated on or had somebody having an affair. It's tough. It's tough to go through. And the only thing keeping me alive was this stupid person I pretended I was on TikTok. Everybody says I'm hypocritical because I hold such high accountability now on TikTok ops. I look at it like kind of like you. You went to prison, you changed your life, and now I'm sure you try to advocate for people not to go to prison. I advocate for people not to do TikTok because I know that you're not focused on your job, you're focused on internet fame, and therefore you're going to get killed or you're going to be lax at work because you're too focused on social media stardom. So
Was it the first wife or the second
It
wife?
was my second wife. So I'm married 3 times. I'm married to my
okay,
third
three
wife now.
times.
So
So it's not
that's the
current
midlife
wife.
crisis. That was
Okay.
the I'm 39 and she's 23. That was the great idea.
Oh, there's
So that
where
was
you
the
went
middle
wrong
one.
right
Yeah,
there.
the young, So that's the middle wife. And so off we go. So now I'm like good friends with the sheriff. That DEA stuff is always somewhere in the background, but nobody really talks about it. I go through, he takes over, and I believe intentionally he promotes all his people because he's the new sheriff. He takes over. I get passed over. I'm his best friend. Very, very hard on me to go. My best friend's in charge, and I didn't want special treatment. I knew I deserved it though. I watched my wife now get promoted. I was dating her at the time. I watched all these younger officers, all these guys make sergeant, all the stuff I wanted. And I'm like, passed over. I got promoted at the end of that year. I deserved it. I got promoted. I got passed. I think I got penalized early in the year because he didn't want to say, oh, I'm friends with Mike. I'll give him promotion. I go on and I go into street crimes and I'm doing all this crazy cool shit. At some point, he has a massive affair that rocks the agency. And one of his staple statements when he got sworn in, he rented the old Dodgers baseball field where the Dodgers were for spring training in Vero Beach. He brought in other agencies to police, and he had the entire sheriff's office at once in one place because it's impossible. Somebody has to work. And he said on the field, if you commit adultery and you cheat on your wife, that is no different than breaking the oath of the Constitution and swearing in. Well, he has an affair, and it rocks the town because it's with a fireman's wife, and it's crazy. So I'm stuck in the middle of this now. I'm his best friend. I'm getting guys walking up to me like the chick's husband walking up to me at like sandwich shops, screaming at me. I'm actually friends with him now, but screaming at me, you're that piece of shit's friend. The community's divided, this, and this, and this, and this. So that's when I started to look at this guy and go, hey man, this isn't good. Now I'm not going to fault him for having an affair. I get it. People make mistakes. But at the crossroads in the middle of all that, I call him an ostrich. He buries his head in the sand because he doesn't want to deal with it. He started to change. And he went from chasing cars, putting bad guys in jail, surrounded by SWAT guys that we're doing critical stuff. We're really pushing this agency to be in good shape. He implemented like this huge physical fitness standard to he can't even handle the stress of the people being mad about the physical fitness standard. So he starts to go the other way and surrounds himself with the yes men. All the guys that are telling him, no, man, this place is great. And I'm going, bro, you're fucking up. Like there was a group of us going, dude, you're fucking this up. Like you have an opportunity to be the greatest sheriff ever. So we started to drift apart. And as we drifted apart, I started to be very honest with him and tell him that's a terrible promotion. That's a bad idea. This is bad. And we start to not become friends anymore. And when is that? November of 2021, I make an arrest. I love being in the news, just so you know. I make an arrest, and there is a lot of discrepancies from people about whether they agree with the arrest I made or not. And now that I'm on podcasts and everything, you like throwing old men on the jail. Real easy arrest. I get in a pursuit with a meth head. We pull into his driveway. I'm fighting with him. I did a lot of tactical things wrong. I should have ran up to the car. I got sucked in. But the mom and dad come out. And these aren't mom and dad, Joe Q. Citizen, very nice people. These are calling me, I'm a big guy, steroid freak, you're red. Like they're screaming at me. And I had arrested this kid prior to that. One of the things that really like caught my attention was the kid yelling as I'm trying to fight with him, this is the same guy. This is the same guy that arrested me. So I'm thinking, man, this kid's talked about me to his parents. Could there be some violence? The dad and mom are interfering. They're calling me names. They're screaming. There's a halo law in Florida now that would be an easy arrest on them. But in Florida, you still can't obstruct an arrest. And they were. Long story short, after the kid's secure, this guy won't shut up. He keeps running his mouth, the dad. And he's not, when I say dad, he's not an old man. He's in his fucking 50s. I'm 49. He's like 52, 53. He's giving us this. He's doing this. And I'm just like, bro, go in the fucking house. So the last thing I say to him before I go hands-on with him is, just go in the house. We have a crime scene in the front yard. And he gives me the fuck you. So from about 20 feet away, I said, you're going to jail, dude. Obstruction, you're done. Well, I pull my handcuffs up, another terrible tactical error. You never pull your handcuffs out until you got the guy under control. I go over, he resists. By the grace of God, I had learned jujitsu, which, in my opinion, jujitsu and BJJ is one of the most important things in law enforcement. So you don't see us beating people with that stupid stick and punching people. He is subdued and arrested without a single strike, because I'm convinced if I would have punched him or hit him, I'd be in prison. He's a nothing. The only thing is the old, you're choking me. I did a crossface across his face because he was resisting. Cleared of all that. Internally, without any complaint from the citizens, somebody files a complaint against me within the agency that to review that arrest. And it is drug out for 6 months. During that 6 months, and I don't know how much you know about law enforcement, what if you would think a guy was under a massive investigation, administrative leave, sent home, not a lot. I'm a patrol sergeant on SWAT, on the U.S. Marshals Task Force, making murder arrests, tracking high-risk fugitives during the whole 6 months. I've never relieved of duty, never taken off the street. They end up charging me with code of ethics violation that basically said I'm so dangerous to the community that I need to be dealt with because I might like hurt people. Illegal use of force, choke, deadly force, completely unfounded by an expert, and conduct unbecoming, you'll catch all, and they fucking demote me. And that was it with me and the sheriff. I'm like, bro, I've never asked this man for a favor. I let Carl Anderson runs a podcast where I gave him the entire file. I gave him the IA file, the video, and all that. Independent. I said, destroy it. I gave it to everybody. Everybody saw it. And the highest amount of discipline I've ever heard from a normal person was maybe have suspended you 8 hours. Maybe. Most 90, high 90s. So I would have given you a letter of counseling and said, bro, you got a little wild, but I didn't hurt him. I didn't hit him. There was probable cause. I get demoted. I believe, this is why I'm coming back to the DA thing. There was a hearing coming up that I didn't know about where they were going to attack my character 10 years later to try to get the case thrown out because of now the attorneys had all that DEA investigation. I believe the yes men around the sheriff went, this dude's your former best friend. He's a sergeant. We have got to get him away from that role as a sergeant in your agency because there's another election coming up. This guy's up for re-election and I'm not supporting him. We got to get this guy demoted or make him look bad because if this hearing comes out that he did all this stuff 10 years ago and he's your friend, you're done. So that was my opinion about why that IA was so crooked. It's still, I can bring you, if you're ever interested one day, you come to Florida, you want to do a follow-up, I can give you every internal affairs investigation that resulted in discipline of more than suspension. The other people demoted were a guy who committed a crime, who stole money from the agency and all he got was demoted. And the other guy I mentioned that had the drugs in his car, all that stuff, he didn't even get fucking as much discipline as me. And another guy sexually assaulted a woman, kept his job. He's now made it back to a lieutenant. When I say sexually assaulted, he didn't rape her, but he groped a woman, stalked her and her husband, the old good old boy system, demoted him, and he's back higher ranked than he was during that. Those are the only two other people I can tell you that got demoted. Those are the type of crimes they committed. I got demoted for arresting a guy and taking a guy to jail, doing my job, not extracurricular stuff. And I believe it was because that DEA stuff was coming back around and they wanted to be ahead of it, that he's not a sergeant anymore for the agency. He's just a regular old detective. So they demoted me.
So do you take the demotion or do you?
Well, here's the caveat. Our unions down there aren't like up here. There's no such thing. We have no unions. I wanted to fight it and I am adamant. I've shown it to experts. I'm like, I want to fight it. What they did was, this is illegal as shit. I got promoted December 27th of 2021. The incident was November 17th of 2022. The IA was filed, stay with me, the IA was filed January 5th of 2023. It's over a year of my promotion, which means I'm not on probation anymore. They go, even though you were served in January, it happened in November, so you're now back on probation and you didn't make probation. So they demoted me for not making probation and demoted me for the offenses. Without the demotion for probation, I can go to a 5-man board, bring in 2 of my guys, bring in 2 of their guys, and have a massive hearing in the public eye. They eliminated my ability to have that hearing by demoting me for probation. And it was illegal. And where I know it's illegal is we had a guy that sexually assaulted a woman and was let go, and they didn't go back and demote. It happened while he was on probation. They didn't go back and demote him. They just fired him at his current rate, and he got all his money paid out as a lieutenant instead of being demoted. So that was specific to me. And they went back and eliminated my ability to have any type of hearing. I was nothing I could do about it. Nothing.
So do you stay with the department?
Yeah, well, they demote me into they rob. This is 2023. They demote me and they stick me in the real-time crime center as a detective. They strip. They leave me on SWAT, and this is like, I guess to sleep better at night. They leave me on SWAT, but I don't patrol the street anymore. I'm a street cop, dude. I'm a street cop. They remove me from patrolling the street. I'm now what I call an offensive coordinator. I sit in a crime center and watch TV and watch body cam and like call. They basically just robbed me of my career. And I go sit in this office and I'm like, I'm demoted. At the time, it was before our new pay scale kicked in. So I went from 79 back down to 63,000. So I lose like 15 grand in pay. I lose the ability to work like all the overtime, and I'm banished to a desk. And now I'm just like, the mental, and this is a lot on my platform. When guys say their mental health is a problem at work, normally it's what I just told you. It's not the dead body. It's not the dead baby. It's not the dead kid. It's not the horrendous accident they saw. We know we're going to encounter that as cops. We're prepared to see a dead baby. You're never prepared for an internal fucking like they do to these guys. And now on my platform, I get hundreds of these messages a month that I got screwed for no reason. No, I vet them. There's guys that did get screwed for a reason. I'm very honest with them, but I know that there are hundreds of officers in this country that have dealt with what I dealt with that are targeted for some political or outside reason. And unfortunately, there's just nothing you can do about it. So I just get stuck. I sit in this office for a couple of years, and January of 24, I get the subpoena that I have to go back to court. And now they did Brady material. Now I'm not Brady listed. I want to be very clear about this. I was never put on a Brady list. Never. I can still go to court and testify. I was never removed or anything. People hear Brady and they automatically think, and I'm sure you know this from being in prison, Brady just means we want all the material for the case. But they have a hearing where they basically try to discredit me and attack me because, dude, now the case is 12 years old and it's still not gone to trial for this pill mill. I have no idea what the fuck is going on, how you let that happen, but this case is still going 12 years later, and I'm getting drugged back into court. And what they did was, well, now we got this crooked cop. We're just going to go in front of the judge and lay all this out. And I had to go to court now and answer all those questions of all the stuff we just talked about in an actual court setting. And I think that's why I got demoted, was let's make sure if that comes out bad, oh, he's a demoted piece of shit cop.
Oh, they didn't want the publicity.
They didn't want a decorated sergeant with the sheriff's office who's best friends with the sheriff. They wanted, yeah, we knew he was a bad guy. We demoted him. He's a monster on the street. Unfortunately, again, nothing ever came of it.
So the optics of the case, or the optics they thought would come from that case, is why they made the decisions to push you out. Twice.
Once they thought the optics were going to be bad on the demotion, and when it made the news, I got hundreds of calls that went, what did you get demoted for? I'm like, you saw the video, you tell me. They're like, I've seen your captain do worse things, hit people with flashlights. I'm like, yeah, I have too. Nobody could understand why. I got calls from people I didn't know in the community that said, I can't believe you got in trouble for this. I'm like, hey man, here I am. And then that optic went bad for them. And then the optics of me going back to court. So I get called into court, I get subpoenaed, and I get asked about everything we just talked about. Trips to Miami, and at this point, I knew I was going to retire. They didn't know that I had started Copville and I was making all this money and I had this meme page. So everybody jokes, like Tyler, my co-host, jokes that admin created the biggest nightmare for them, which is Copville, who now goes after admin, because from the demotion, I started Copville as just a jokey meme page. And next thing I know, I'm making six figures in merchandise sales and sponsors because I have this massive meme page. I didn't tell anybody. I kept it completely secret. So all the while they're fucking me, I'm like, boy, there's gonna be a day where I come out from behind this page, man, and they're not gonna know it's me. So I get called into court to testify about everything we just talked about. They go page by page. Isn't it true you went to Miami? Yep. Did you do drugs? No, I didn't do drugs. Did you shoot your gun? No, I didn't shoot my gun. Isn't it true? And one of the funniest parts of the hearing were, because at this point I don't give a fuck anymore. And I was very comfortable on the stand because I testified in If you talk to your average cop, they probably testify 4 or 5 times in their career. I've testified hundreds in all those pill cases and all those life cases. I walk into court and it's no different than me and you right now. I'm super comfortable. So they started asking me. One of the questions the guy asked me was, he's like, you hang out with these guys. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, we're at a strip club. Well, what does that mean? I was like, have you ever been to a strip club, sir? He's like, no. I said, I don't go to the strip club to hang out with men. Like, I went to hang out with women. So I spent a lot of time in the back with like girls, and they're looking at me like, this fucking cop is saying this. I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm quitting soon anyway. So I'm like reckless in there. I'm like making jokes of the whole, I'm like, this is a joke. I'm like, this. So they bring in the guy that made all the allegations. They bring in the girl that lived with me, and she admitted that she was being paid by this guy. But she said Mike didn't know about it. Mike had no idea. So when the hearing was over, the statewide prosecutor's sitting there. She's like, you did fine. She's like, you're not Brady Listed in my world. She's like, we're going forward with this case. So the case is actually, I called her, it's still going. It's still in like appeals, but she had no problem with it. Never made the paper, never made the news again, because it was just nothing to it. But it's always kind of lived in the world. So the attorney that pushed with the sheriff for my use of force IA, where I got demoted, then sent out, I guess, a document to all the attorneys in town, like basically saying, Dilks is a piece of shit. Make sure you guys know he's got this. I went to several more depositions. Nobody ever brought it up. Nobody. I think it's one of those things like there's not a stitch of evidence to say I did anything wrong. And you're telling, what's the old saying? The feds can indict a ham sandwich. This ham sandwich made the whole investigation and the internal affairs investigation, never indicted, never heard another word about it. And I lived the rest of my life with that asterisk next to my name that I'm some fucking crook. And there's no proof I did anything wrong.
And your wife still works for that department?
That's a whole nother dynamic. Yeah, because I've now publicly, I'll show you how transparent I am. I've done steroids. I don't look big now, but I have, and I did. And there's a lot of cops that do steroids. I'm not going to lie. And how I ended up leaving was, I'm buried in that office. I'm in that thing, and one of the guys that was doing steroids gets in a domestic with his wife, and she basically goes to the station and goes, "These two guys, I know they're doing steroids." So I'm on FMLA, and which is, for anybody who doesn't know, Florida Medical or Federal Medical Leave Act. I'm out, which means I can't get called into work. I'm out. And they call me and they're like, "Hey, I need you to come in." And I'm like, "How the fuck do I get to come in? Like, I could be in Europe right now. I don't have to go in, but you're still conditioned as a cop. Even somebody at that point that has been screwed so many times, you work for the man, and you're scared to buck the system." So I'm like, I drive in, and they hand me this drug form that might as well have been written on this tissue that says you have a random drug test. And I'm like, I have a random drug test. I'm like, I'm on FMLA. I don't have to do this. And I'm like, you're telling me this is random. And they hand me this paper that is like almost written in like crayon that says drug test. So what a normal protocol for random drug test is, okay, I get the form and I drive down to the clinic, piss, and I sign it. The clinic signs it, and I go back. So I'm like, let's go. I was like, I'll go take it. Oh, no. We're going with you. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, you're going with me. And then I look at the form and I see handwritten in the top form a box that says steroids. And I'm like, I know what happened. And I had not done it in quite a while, but having done the research, I knew the half-life on one of the substances I was taking was like 9 months. I'm like, this is gonna be a bang bang play at first base. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna, but I'm like, you know what? Kind of like there's like a cartoon or a movie where they're like, today's the day. I think it's like a Pixar movie. I was gonna leave December 4th of 2024. I had made up the mind. I was quitting. Oh, and I didn't even cover that. The reason I was quitting was the sheriff had an election August 20th of a month earlier. There was an election August 20th. He lost. He won. I supported Milo Thornton, who was his rival. Tuesday there was an election. I walk into Monday and I get a call and it's, "Hey, can you come in the captain's office?" So I'm like, this ought to be good. I walk in and they slide a memo across the desk, and I'm like, pick it up, and it says, "You are hereby removed from SWAT. You are transferred as a deputy to corrections deputy in the jail." I don't know what that means to you, but that is like the death sentence. I'm not certified to work in the jail. I'm not a certified corrections officer. They basically went, you voted for the other guy, fuck you. Took away SWAT, which I worked my entire life to get to, took away my status as a law enforcement officer. That means Now I don't have a take-home car. I can't work overtime, and I'm now unarmed in the very jail where I've put thousands of people. And I made the decision that day when I went home. I'm done. I was out on workers' comp. I tore my knee for the third time. I left meniscus. So I was like, I'm going home. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm going to use my sick time to stay home on light duty, not work. And I went home to my wife and I said, my 20 years is up in December 4th of 2020. This year, I'm resigning, moving off my life. And I get a pension. I just get a slightly less pension. So I was like, I'm done. Well, then the drug test comes along and I go take it. I'm like, you know what? I go in the back and the black lady's like, hey, you know, there's a steroid, right? I'm like, yeah. She's like, they called ahead. It wasn't random. They called ahead 3 days earlier. They spent like fucking $8,000 to have all these tests. And I'm like, all right. Like, although I'm a very accountable guy, although it was all fucking bullshit what they did, I made the decision to use anabolic steroids. That's nobody else's fault but my own. I took the test. I went home and I told my wife, I said, this is it. Like, and for the record, my wife does not know what I do. I had to break it to her that I'm like, hey, I might have dabbled in some testosterone or some things I shouldn't have. And of course that didn't go over very well. But I said, I got to own it. I did it. I'm quitting. I said, we'll be fine. I have all this other income. And I typed a letter and I said, effective today at 5 p.m., I resign.
So you don't get your pension then?
I do. No, I get everything.
Oh, okay.
I get everything. Nothing changed.
So
I
the
resigned.
steroids didn't affect it or
No,
anything?
because they would by the time they got to the other guy's test results, he ended up staying and running it. I'm like, bro, you did this shit like 3 weeks ago. Like I did it like 9 months ago. I'm like, you're going to fail, dude. But he was just in that and he ended up failing the test and it took like 9 weeks for them to go through, because he had a prescription for testosterone. So that tested positive. Then they had to send it off to a second lab to see if there was any additional substances. So I just said, before they can do all that to me, I'm going to own it. I'm going to resign. So my pension's fine. I have my certificate for law enforcement says resign, not under investigation. I'm completely free and clear. And I actually collect my first pension check October 31st.
Oh.
I waited a year to collect it and I collect my first pension check. So I know you are like, even asked me about marijuana in the beginning. I'm sure one of your questions is going to be like, isn't it very hypocritical of you to do steroids and work as a cop? And I would answer yes, but every sports hero you has dabbled in some type of substance and it's all illegal to them too. I guess my defense to that is not that I'm better than you or I shouldn't be, but I got in very good shape and I was very effective for the community by being in good shape to perform my job.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone that said that even the military doesn't test for steroids.
Nobody cares, dude. I'm the first person in history of the Indiana County Sheriff's Office to be tested for steroids. And it was an agenda because they don't want to know how many got. And that was the other thing is I didn't want to stay, and I could have stayed. I might have got in trouble. I don't think they would have, well, with the climate, they would have fired me. In a real sheriff's office, I could have said, I have a drug problem. I'm addicted to steroids. I need help. And I probably could have rode like the like EAP, employee assistance, but I never wanted to go on internal affairs investigation and have them ask me who else is on steroids, because I'm not going to tell on everybody. So
what does your wife think about what you do now?
She is she's a female cop, and you know how that whole Dom Izzo whole take on cops is like females shouldn't be cops. She's one of the few that trains very hard, does jujitsu and all that. She's in a very awkward place that I work, I go after the agency that she worked for. To not dive too deep, all I can say is she's big on accountability. And if the agency does something they shouldn't do it. And if I do something I shouldn't do it. And she's very much, people should be held accountable. And if the agency's doing things they shouldn't do, stop doing it. If you shouldn't be doing XYZ, if you should be treating people fairly, treat them fairly. So without diving too deep into her thoughts, she obviously knows the optics of where she's at. My daughter works there too.
Wait, she's
my daughter's a corrections deputy.
Oh, corrections? Okay.
So it's like I have two relatives that still work there.
That's funny.
And, I would hope they would keep the beef with me and not target them. I think they've already started on my wife a little bit. I would hope they don't target my daughter. because I am very straightforward. I don't go after none of their family members. I don't go after their kids. I just say what you guys are doing is wrong. So it's a weird thing. Like, you know, for her to work there still. And
your wife's got to come on the show when she retires.
yes, you will hear what I am I joked about this last night at our live show, and I say this a lot. The only worst thing than being a cop is being married to a cop, because now I know what she's going through and the stress of the job, but she is very, very different than me. She's very intelligent. She's very smart, and she has very good takes on things. And you would enjoy talking to her.
Are you guys the same age? Or?
I'm slightly older. I'm 49. She's 43. So we're close. We're not. It's not the 25-year-old. And that's a whole nother story in itself, because we were actually enemies at one point in our lives.
Who are you and?
Enemy. It was so commonly known in the sheriff's office that we hated each other at one point, that when I told my friend that we were dating, he made me FaceTime. He thought I was lying. He's like, you have to FaceTime me and show me you're dating her. And we ended up being married. She you know, she is big on accountability, and she actually molded me. That's why it's like, to lose what I lost when I lost it was when I was most accountable. I live with a woman who breathes accountability. And when I didn't get promoted, she didn't let me kick the can and go, poor me. She said, motherfucker, you didn't get promoted. You shut your mouth. You go back to work. You work hard, and you get promoted next time. Every day's one of her big statements is every day's an interview. So if you go into work and don't act like you deserve the position because you didn't get it, they're going to go, look at him. Look at what he's doing. He's acting like a baby. So she's big on every day's an interview and statistics. What is their other one? Averages for statistics. She believes that average is garbage. You should be the standard. She's ready for work an hour early. She's home late. She's always available. She is the epitome of do the right thing cop. And she molded me. I'll tell you, she molded me into being more trained, being in jiu-jitsu, being better at firearms, and being accountable for like wearing your vest. And she's a big advocate for cops wearing their vest. Down in Florida, everybody just takes it off because it's too hot, and it's the worst thing a cop could do. So, but yeah, it's a weird optic sometimes being so outspoken against my agency while she works there.
What do you think is the biggest life lesson you take away from your career?
The biggest life lesson I've taken away from my career? That's a great question. Doing the right thing, no matter what, is very important. And when I say that, I mean buying those jackets was probably the wrong thing to do. Not speaking up about those jackets back then was the wrong thing. Would have been the right thing to do. Not saying, holding a level of accountability to yourself that don't allow the pension. And the two biggest things I hear at cops' mouth is, but I need a paycheck and I need a pension. That doesn't mean you fold, man. And a lot of the guys that come to me and say, man, you got to come after my agency. I got this guy in my agency that's a crook. He's a piece of garbage. I say to them, have you said anything yet? Well, I can't. I respect it a little bit, but if we all sit back, like you're here to bring stuff out. A guy like you is needed to go, I'm going to bring out these stories the world needs to hear these things. Same thing in your job. If you see bad things and you got people doing the wrong thing, say something. So the biggest life lesson that I learned in law enforcement is, and in my life, is not everybody's your friend. I came out of 23 years of law enforcement, and I can count on one hand guys that are really my friend. Not the guys I went, and guess what they are? Not the guys I went drinking with, not the guys I partied with, not the guys I went on vacation with. It's the dude that we worked together, we respected each other, and if I had an issue, I could call him. Christian Matheson is my best friend. I've been on maybe one trip with him in 23 years. But if I call Christian Matheson right now from this phone, he's going to answer, and he's going to help me, he's going to provide solutions, and he's going to be there for me. He's going to go, you're a fucking asshole for making TikToks. not sugarcoat it. So that is probably at the end of 23 years where you hear Thin Blue Line, brotherhood, we're all on the same team. We're not. That building is toxic. Remember that you work for the people of the community. Do the right thing for them. Be blessed that if you end up with one or two good friends, and don't try to be friends with everybody. It's not good optics in law enforcement. Care about your family, care about your close friends, and do what's right.
Mike, I appreciate you coming on the show
today. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, man.
Yeah, it was awesome meeting you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.